My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today. I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked. Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late-night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
And it's about standards and public life. No, I'll tell you what's hypocrisy, Narendra.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin.
We believe in the UK.
No bias, no censorship.
It just doesn't make sense to me. He wasn't doing his job as Chancellor.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
I think I've seen probably quite enough of Matt Hancock to last me a lifetime.
I'll also be getting to know you better, travelling to find out what you think about the politicians who are fighting for your vote.
They've got to get this country back on track.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. only on GB News, on TV, radio and online.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Show tonight, all the fun stuff, Christmas, thought control, paedophile chic, and the total collapse of the Tories' capacity for government. Ava Valadingerbroek, Alexandra Marshall, Leilani Dowding and Toby Young are here. Plus, of course, the most important part of the show, that is you. You can email me, gbviews@gbnews.uk. You can tweet me at GB News. So tweet away. All coming up after Tatiana Sanchez with the latest news. Over to you, Tatiana.
Mark, thank you very much. This is the latest from the GB Newsroom. The founder of a domestic abuse charity has told GB News she felt like she was being interrogated during a reception at Buckingham Palace. Ngozi Fulani described comments made by Prince William's godmother as unacceptable, and she was shocked by her behaviour during a royal reception. Lady Susan Hussey was forced to apologise and resign for repeatedly asking Ms Fulani where she really came from.
I mean, if you want to find out something about somebody, you ask a question once or twice. Once you've got the answer, you move on, right? And because this whole thing is about domestic abuse, there are other questions. But when the first thing she did as well is to take my hair and move it out of the way. That's the first thing. No hello, no nothing. You just actually, and I've never done that. I really think that we need to respect people's personal space. Ambulance times are higher now than they were at any point last winter.
New data shows nearly a third of patients in England had to wait more than half an hour to be handed over to A&E last week. An average of 13,000 patients were also stuck in hospital beds each day, despite being ready to be discharged. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak says investing in social care will help ease the burden on the NHS.
I want to see ambulance waiting times come down, and that's why, in spite of the difficult decisions we've had to make, we've put more money into the NHS to help address the waiting times that people are experiencing. One of the ways we're going to do that is by moving people out of hospitals, back to their homes, back into the communities, and that's why we've invested in social care, because that money will help provide more capacity, and if we can free up those beds, that will stop some of the delays that we're seeing.
GB News understands more than 44,000 migrants have crossed the Channel so far this year. That's after around 200 people were intercepted this morning. The overall figure is significantly higher than last year's total, when 29,000 people were intercepted. A surge in the number of people trying to cross this week coincides with better weather conditions. Met Police Commissioner Sir Mark Rowley says he's going after corrupt officers within the force. Measures such as an anonymous hotline have been introduced to help identify them and to root out racism, misogyny and other toxic conduct. And history is being made tonight. 3 women become the first all-female on-field refereeing team for a men's World Cup match. Stephanie Frappart, Nusa Bak and Karen Diaz are taking charge of Costa Rica and Germany's Group E clash in Qatar. That game is in the second half. Frappart was the first female to officiate at a men's World Cup qualifier in March. TV, online and DAB+ radio. This is GB News. Now it's back to Mark Steyn.
Thank you, Tatiana. Let's have a bit more news. Here's a few random headlines that caught my eye today from the BBC. House prices see biggest fall for 2 years. Oh, you don't say. Here's another one. My mum's 40-hour wait to get to A&E with hip break. And that's before the ambulance drivers went on strike. From the Belfast Telegraph. I like this one. If you heard what Rishi was saying just a moment ago, you'll love this. Londonderry GP surgery is 10th clinic to face axe in Northern Ireland. By facing axe, if you don't know what that means, they mean these surgeries are handing back their licences to His Majesty's government because, as the British Medical Association puts it, quote, they can't deal with it anymore. They've seen their annual energy bills rise from £30,000 to £130,000. Here's another one I like, cost of living. You follow the cost of living stories? People in Cardiff eating pet food. The good news is people in Cardiff can still afford pet food. You know who aren't eating pet food? People in hotels. Headline from the Daily Mail. Asylum seekers reveal how they have been staying in £100 a night taxpayer-funded hotels for as long as 15 months and taking £5 an hour cash-in-hand jobs to boost £8 government pocket money despite not being allowed to work. Oh, it's almost like, quote, not being allowed to work doesn't actually mean anything, does it? Oh, here comes another asylum seeker. I like this one. Osama bin Laden gassed my puppies. Terror leader's son reveals trauma of growing up with jihad-obsessed father and says he wants to move to the UK and is applying for a visa. That's great news. Osama bin Laden gassed my puppies. That's up there with this classic. When we actually had a press in London, Freddie Starr ate my hamster. But at least back in those days, you could afford a hamster. Headline from the Metro. I'm aborting my baby because I can't afford a second child in this cost of living crisis. Just in case you thought Britain's collapsed fertility rate and the going out of business sale of the English, Scots, Ulster and Welsh people couldn't get any worse. But don't worry, some Britons still make it out of the womb, just for a while. Emergency care issues in England contributed to 200 deaths last week, says medical chief. By emergency care issues, The issue is that you don't get any emergency care. That's why you're dead. Headline from Sky News. When teachers go on strike, it is a cry for help, says head of National Education Union. Wait a minute, the teachers are on strike? I thought it was the postman. No, wait, the fireman. Hang on, the nurses. No, it's all of them and more. ITV News has published a handy cut out and keep guide to who's striking when. This is very useful, this. Just print it out, keep it with you. If it's Tuesday, it must be the bus drivers. If it's Thursday, it's the Royal College of Midwives. The TUC would call for a general strike, except that pretty much everybody is already on strike, except for the Amalgamated Union of Hedge Funders and the National Association of BPnist Women. Are you still enough of a rube and a patsy and a fall guy that you get up in the morning to go to work so you can dutifully assume your rightful share of the highest national tax burden since 1948, only to find yourself stuck in gridlock because some upper middle class varsity boys in the 7th year of climate and transgender studies are clogging up the street? Hey, relax. Just stop oil and the Greater Macarena Constabulary on the same side. Here they are yucking it up after getting together to bring the Barbican to a standstill. Yeah, that's pretty funny, isn't it? Not as funny as when you glue yourself to a Van Gogh, but still. And the response to all this from the Conservative government was summed up yesterday in the pithy reply of Sajid Javid to Nigel Farage's tweet about the Office of National Statistics census numbers. So what, says Sajid. So what? That's the new campaign slogan of the Conservative and Unionist Party. So what? Over 10% of the population's on the NHS waiting list. So what? It's the biggest fall in living standards since the 1950s. So what? 2% of Albanian men have moved to the UK in the last year. So what? If the Conservative Party had any self-respect, it would take a tumbler of scotch and a loaded revolver into the study of the Carlton Club and put itself out of our misery. Instead, the first Prime Minister in the history of the Commonwealth to be richer than his monarch is... Oh, here he comes. There's Rishi, putting on his top hat, tying up his white tie, prancing in his tails, because the Tories' internal polling found that there are still 3 British subjects on an outlying part of Rock Hall who don't feel Rishi Rich is quite sufficiently out of touch with the British people yet. Let me know your take. GBViews at gbnews.uk. Toby Young is the founder of 2 crackerjack institutions that you should certainly get out there and check out. The Daily Skeptic. That's my first port of call every morning. I have to blink at it as I'm waking up to see whether the stories in there aren't totally fake and just a general wind-up, but they're all true. And then the Free Speech Union, which is also a great institution. Make the most of it before it's banned. Toby joins me now. Toby, you voted for Liz Truss, so you're well connected with all these high-ranking Tories and everything. Who actually out there still likes this awful party?
You know, it seems like increasingly few people. I mean, you did a great summary there of the chaos that's currently engulfing Britain, and by all accounts, it's about to get significantly worse, even though that's almost unimaginable. And the Tories are polling at historically low levels, and I imagine their star's going to sink even lower. I have to say, I don't think we can entirely blame Rishi Sunak and this government for all the problems engulfing the country. I mean, you know, the reason we have high inflation, the reason we're in the throes of a cost of living crisis are partly because the previous government, not the Liz Truss one, I mean the one before that, quite hard to keep track these days.
Yeah, Liz Truss was basically just like intermission when you go to see The Lion King between the two halves.
That's right, yeah, bit of fun before more dullness returned. But the Boris Johnson government did spend £500 billion to pay people to stay at home and not work in the belief that that would somehow reduce COVID infections. We now know it probably didn't because Sweden didn't lock down. They didn't pay their working population to stay at home and not work. And as a result, they're in a much better shape economically than we are. But some of the problems we're in, the NHS crisis, the fact that, as you said, something like 10% of the population is now on an NHS waiting list, partly because people were told to stay at home to protect the NHS during the pandemic. They did that, and now they have a lot of things wrong with them that the NHS can't see them about because there are too many of them, because too many of them stayed at home. So to a certain extent, Rishi has inherited a God almighty mess, but he's partly responsible for it because he was in the cabinet as Chancellor of the Exchequer in the Boris Johnson administration.
He didn't inherit it. The person who, I guess, inherited it under the rules was Liz Truss. Liz Truss lasted 20 minutes, and then the loser from that contest was mysteriously... So he's now been there longer than Liz Truss, and yet he's invisible. He doesn't seem... He was doing karaoke with Justin at the G20 or whatever it was, but other than that, where is he? What's he doing?
That's the really surprising thing. OK, he can... There's a bit of mitigation, maybe not as much as, he would like to think. But having become Prime Minister, having supposedly fulfilled this long-standing ambition, he's finally at the wheel of the ship of state, and he's nowhere to be seen. He's not on deck. Why isn't he out there at least appearing to lead, to show a bit of grip, to say, look, I'm going to do this about the soaring levels of inflation. I'm going to do this about the small boats crisis. I'm going to do this to solve the problem in the NHS. But he's not. He's nowhere in sight.
They seem to have taken the position that there's no point trying to do anything, because there's there's a problem in the NHS and there's a problem with the energy supply. And as we just saw in that report from the Belfast Telegraph, that means that there are surgeries all over Ulster and over the rest of the country who just say, well, look, it's not worth us staying in this business anymore. I mean, that's actually incredible, isn't it? At a time when you've got over 10% of the population on the waiting list, surgeries are like closing up shop at a phenomenal rate.
Yeah, I mean, it's a reflection of the fact that the NHS is just incredibly poorly managed. I mean, it's a service that has been in crisis for as long as I can remember. It delivers worse health outcomes than almost any other health system in Europe. It's desperately in need of reform, but this government certainly lacks the courage to reform it. It's a sacred cow that they don't want to trust for fear that Keir Starmer will make something of it at the next general election. I fear that if we are ever going to reform the NHS and turn it into something that's fit for purpose, we're going to have to rely on, God help us, Keir Starmer to do that, because he'll at least have the political cover to do it. No Conservative dares touch it.
Well, wouldn't now be a good time to actually have a realignment on the right? I mean, I'm tired of listening to just the total crapola from these guys over here, where occasionally when they're running for leadership, they'll claim to be excited about doing something about this, doing something about that. But these guys aren't doing anything about anything. So wouldn't this be the time to actually have a realignment and find an alternative right of centre part?
Well, you would hope that out of this chaos would emerge someone with a bit of backbone, a natural leader. And maybe that will happen in due course. I still have high hopes for Kemi Badenoch. But, Mark, there are some things we still do really well in this country. Let's not forget, if you commit a microaggression, if you ask a woman of colour at Buckingham Palace, where is she from originally?
Yes.
Oh
no, we've only covered that exhaustively for 48 days. We can't. There's another 10 days of legs in that story.
I mean, it's incredible that she was out of there, within seconds of asking this question. Suddenly, all the machinery, which normally doesn't work, sprung into action. It's like if you're burgled, you call up the police, you say, I've just been burgled. They've defecated in my sitting room. They've killed the pet dog. They've set fire to my garden office. They've trashed the kitchen. The police might, if you're lucky, give you a crime reference number that you can pass on to you. No way they'll come around to investigate. The way to solve that problem is to say, and the burglars spray painted onto the wall, trans women aren't women. You'll have a team of 6 round there to investigate the hate crime within 30 seconds.
And conversely, if Lady Susan Hussey had claimed to be Albanian, She wouldn't have been. They wouldn't have touched her for
Or
anything.
a trans lady in waiting.
Yeah.
Then she would have.
Yeah, by the way, this is one for you guys at the BBC. You can run with this till the end of the year. Why is this so-called woke monarchy not got any trans ladies in waiting? Why is Buckingham Palace still just full of cis women? These are the problem. Well, just to tie it all up, I was slightly astonished, going back now, whatever it is, 2 months, at the congratulations there were about how, for the Queen's funeral, which admittedly went off very nicely, but then people were saying, oh, say what you like about Britain, but this is one thing we do really well. It's not actually a good sign when the best thing a country does well is funerals. I mean, what about all the other stuff?
What about life?
Yeah.
Not just death.
Yeah.
When you look back at the country, you look back at that period of mourning, it seemed the depths to which we've fallen since just then. Every time you think you've hit rock bottom in the collapsing building, your feet find the floor and you think, this is the nadir. It doesn't get any worse than this. Suddenly the floor gives way again and you're tumbling down through the building again. And that's what it feels like at the moment.
Can Rishi Sunak turn around the fortunes of the Conservative Party?
Well, it doesn't look that way at the moment. I think the more pertinent question is, can he survive until Christmas? That remains to be seen.
OK, well, there are mysterious forces that put him in there, so we must assume they're willing to keep him there at least through 12th night. Thank you very much, Toby. Up next, we're going to get your thoughts, GBviews at gbnews.uk, plus a stellar lineup for you. Ava Valardingerbroek, Alexandra Marshall, Leilani Dowding. Don't touch that dial. We're coming right back.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
And it's about standards and public life. No, I'll tell you what's hypocrisy, Narendra.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin.
We believe in the UK.
No bias, no censorship.
It just doesn't make sense to me. He wasn't doing his job as Chancellor.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
I think I've seen probably quite enough of Matt Hancock to last me a lifetime.
I'll also be getting to know you better, travelling to find out what you think about the politicians who are fighting for your vote.
They've got to get this country back on track.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. only on GB News, on TV, radio and online.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today. I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked. Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other pay-per-review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
GB News is the People's Channel, so let us channel what the people have to say. We wanted to know whether you'd be going on strike this Christmas. Jerry says yes, with the RMT. We're being taken for mugs. Don't clap us for working through lockdown, then refuse to give us a pay rise for 3 years and tell us, oh, by the way, 2,000 redundancies as well. May says, can anyone tell me why there were no strikes during furlough? That's actually a brilliant insight, May. And I certainly hope that guy over the river at number 10 is listening, because the best way to get people, this is just a tip from May to you, Rishi, the best way to get people not to notice that everybody's on strike would be for you to lock down the entire country, declare a general furlough, and give everybody another £500 billion to stay at home. You would retrieve your fortunes. Go ahead, do it. It's just paper. Nobody thinks this money is real anymore. It's just paper. Go ahead and do it. Steve says it's a political hit job, coordinated just to get Labour in. Look, I loathe Sir Keir Starmer and the Ginger Growler as much as anyone, but this is nothing to do with them. Keir Starmer and the Ginger Growler are just sitting back and letting these guys screw up the last 1.4% of the nation they haven't screwed up. The Tories own this. They've been in government for 12 years, and the wreckage all around can't be attributed to anyone. This isn't, you know, I'm sympathetic to a degree. Queen Victoria at her Diamond Jubilee still blaming everything wrong on William IV. Okay, fine, just about credible. This is all on Rishi Rich and his party. And if you're a genuine Conservative, this is not a time to be blaming Keir Starmer. This is a time to be blaming the Conservative Party for not doing the slightest Conservative thing in 12 years. Taz says whether he's going on strike, that's a difficult one. Usually I wouldn't consider it, but if it's guaranteed to bring this shyster government down, I'd do it in a heartbeat. A government of shysters is well put. Christabel Balenciaga was a fabulous couturier who dressed the world's most glamorous women. Ava Gardner. Audrey, that is a beautiful dress and a beautiful woman in it. Audrey Hepburn. Yeah, I think I preferred Ava's dress. Grace Kelly. Yeah, great stuff. But to the new owners of Balenciaga, those broads are all a bit long in the tooth, so here's their latest model. Look at this. What a cutie. She's lying on the sofa, and in the foreground, the table is set with wine glasses and champagne flutes, just to relax the kid a little. And there's a teddy bear in bondage gear next to her, because Teddy likes all the same things the wee little moppet is sure to enjoy, doesn't he? Ava Valadingerbroek joins me. What do you make of this pedo chic, Ava?
Well, that it's disgusting, obviously. And not just disgusting, it's demonic, quite frankly, because it doesn't just stay with some teddy bears in bondage gear. And some of the other photos that Balenciaga put out in the same ad, they had actual tape there with a misspelling of Balenciaga. In this case, Balenciaga, meaning Baal, a reference to the demon to whom children were sacrificed. So there is a lot of sinister stuff going on. Another thing that they had in the photos was a court case about child pornography that was actually struck down by the Supreme Court in the United States. So this can't just be a coincidence. These people are openly promoting, openly flirting with child pornography and pedophilia. That's what this is, and they're not even trying to hide it anymore. It's purely satanic. That's what it is.
Well, let me ask you this, Ava. What do you make of all the people who worked on this shoot? The stylists, the photographer, I don't regard myself as someone inclined to get on his moral high horse, but if I turned up for a shoot like this and there's a 7-year-old girl there, and again, she's being framed so that the champagne flutes and wine glasses are clearly intended for her, and the bondage paraphernalia is also part of the act. I'd say, wait a minute. She's 7 years old. Call me back when you got someone over 11. I'm out of here. Why did none of these guys do this?
Yeah, that would have been the normal response. But the fact that nobody did that, again, shows you that this was all intentional. Everybody was in on it. And the fact that Balenciaga is now trying to sue the people who put this set up for, I think, $25 million is just absolutely ridiculous and laughable. They were completely in on it. There were too many coincidences in this ad campaign for it to be in any way, shape, or form intentional. It is the devil who's wearing Balenciaga, and it's the devil who's hiding in plain sight with this ad. So just boycotting Balenciaga, to me, really isn't enough when it's about this type of evil. These people should be criminally prosecuted, really.
Is it correct to discern from certain trends in the culture that rehabilitating paedophilia is going to be the next big thing, that normalizing paedophilia is going to be the next big thing, Ava?
I think there's no doubt. I mean, if you throw all morality out of the window, then you accept the slippery slope of things like this happening. And we've already seen people on the left, feminists, talking about pedophilia as a sexual preference instead of an illness or something that's completely criminal, right? So this is definitely the next step. And here, they're doing it so openly, they're not even trying to deny it anymore. So I think within the next couple of years, of course, we're going to be talking about whether that's just a different kind of love. Unless people speak up about this now, and the fact that Hollywood, for example, is not doing it should tell you everything that you need to know.
Well, there is a continuum here, isn't there? And Balenciaga is a private company, but the state, on the other hand, in most parts of the Western world now, for example, thinks that sex is now taught about in grade school, in kindergarten, in the very first years of school in America. And the sexualization of children, where you can go to drag queen story time at the library, and the drag queens are training the cute little 6-year-old to do some bump and grind routine. I mean, isn't Balenciaga's defense that why can't we do it when school boards and town councils and the federal government in the United States is very keen on it all?
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of true. The fact of the matter is that this is being normalized everywhere more and more. So we should stand up against it as hard as we can, because obviously child rape, the abuse of children, is the worst type of evil that you can imagine. And if not everyone in this world agrees that that's the one thing where we should really draw the absolute line, then I have no hope for our society whatsoever.
Well, that's an interesting way to put it. I mean, anyone coming back from, say, 1950 to now, that isn't a long time in the scheme of things, but some fellow who were keeled over at 87 in 1950 and then came back now and looked at the hypersexualization of fashion ads is one thing, but when you're using 7-year-olds to do it, he would think that we had just surrendered to Satan, wouldn't he?
Yes, and I mean, exactly. It's really the devil who's ruling in this world. It's the upside down world, and it's not necessarily in the details anymore. It's very out in the open. The satanic references that are being made by our pop stars, the music that we listen to, the video clips that they put out, it is something that has completely been normalized and almost seems to be the main element almost in pop culture nowadays. So even if people aren't aware of this, of course, now with Balenciaga, it was called out. Again, except for everyone in Hollywood who is also making all of these references to satanic elements. So yeah, the devil it seems to be ruling this world.
But Balenciaga only pushed back and apologized after they had their stores on Fifth Avenue and whatnot daubed by people who objected to this. I mean, clearly this idea that, we had no idea this was, when we gave this advertising agency the contract, we had no idea they'd come up with something like this. We're going to sue them. They signed off on it. They approved this. This is on Balenciaga. They thought this was cool. Because in this world, in the fashion world, in the media world, in motion pictures, in pop music, the sexualization of children is cool.
Yes. Well, like I said, the devil is hiding in plain sight. And I think they like that idea, that they get to play with it, that they get to shove it in our faces, and that usually nothing happens. But at least in this case, enough normal people with some sanity left said, hey, this really crossed the line.
Thank you very much, Ava. Up next, Twitter abandons its disinformation labeling. Alexandra Marshall's here on that. And later, Leilani Dowding on the new progressive Scrooges humbugging up Christmas. Stay tuned for that. We're coming right back.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Monday to Thursday, 10 till 12, on TV, on radio, and online.
Every Friday and Sunday night from 9, it's Mark Dolan Tonight.
We're on the same page again. There's something weird happening.
Let Ian finish. Don't be such a cranky. That mini budget was the tip of the iceberg.
And on Saturday, my show just got bigger. From 8, it's Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In.
You can't govern a country if you can't speak.
Stop talking.
My God, we reached the end. I've never been early in my life. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing. You see, amazing.
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
Hello, I'm Alastair Stewart, and I'd invite you to join me at noon on Saturdays and Sundays for Alastair Stewart and Friends. I've been in this business for over 40 years. Now, here at GB News, I've never been happier. I get to choose the big stories that really interest me. We hear what you have to say, and you hear what I have to say. I really hope you can join me, noon on Saturdays and Sundays.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
You want some good news? Elon Musk continues to clean house at Twitter. As of this week, Twitter has abandoned its COVID misinformation policy, which is just as well, because yesterday's COVID misinformation is today's belated grudging admission from officialdom. Oh yeah, okay, maybe it did come from a lab. And those vaccines don't stop you getting the thing. And some crappy old mask hanging off the end of your nose isn't going to do anything for you. It was never about misinformation. It was about mass control, a malign alliance between social media and governments. The unbannable Alexandra Marshall from The Spectator is here. Alexandra, is this good news or just a small first step?
Look, Musk has been making a lot of changes since he got to Twitter. I mean, I woke up this morning and saw that 400 followers were just gone, but that's him clearing out the actual bots, you know, the ones that abuse you when you wake up in the morning, leave all the death threats. He's actually getting rid of those. And one of the great things that he's done this week is that he's ditched the COVID community safety policy. Now, what that policy did is sort of Pfizer and Moderna and all the big pharmaceutical companies, they used to give Twitter a lot of money for advertising. And then bizarrely, Twitter would have this sort of safety protocol which would get rid of anybody who said anything nasty about their products. Now that to me feels more like a corporate protection racket than a community safety initiative. Now there's another one sitting there which is their net zero initiative. Now I'm hoping that Musk actually gets rid of that one as well.
Yeah, that would be a big thing, because it's not just the COVID. There are all kinds of areas of public discourse where they enforce these misinformation rules. So getting actual free debate going on things like climate and net zero would be a huge improvement on Twitter.
Absolutely. By the way, if you can hear that noise, I've got builders and my neighbours are going to kill them later. Basically, what we've got is all these big net zero companies, these mining organisations who they don't really want competitors saying, hey, maybe the child slave labour in Africa isn't such a great thing for the climate. And, you know, also all that climate tax where you're taxing the poor for basically existing, well, that's not going to save the climate either. So these are the things that are still existing on Twitter. Thankfully, Musk doesn't appear to be enforcing it, but it'd still be great if he gets rid of that last layer of corporate and government overreach, which is controlling the political conversation online, as well as disadvantaging other corporations who should be entitled to a free market advertising.
Just to be clear on that, Alexandra, because it's an important thing, when you talk about child slave labour, when they get rid of the internal combustion engine, which that boob across the river is committing to do by 2030, so when they get rid of petrol and diesel cars and we all get these electric cars, what it means is that every 7-year-old in Central Africa is going to be working in the lithium mines. It's basically, if you're in the Western world and you're 7 years old, you get to do pornographic Balenciaga ads. But if you're a 7-year-old in Central Africa, you get to go down the lithium mines.
I think we can agree that our children are being abused all over the world by this woke ideology, whether it's the lithium mines or whether it's the Hollywood and the big glitzy industry of high fashion. But there's two sorts of abuse going on. There's the literal child slave labour, which I notice our elites don't seem to be very concerned about when they're driving their EV cars around. And then there is the abuse of countries where China goes and basically sells off and takes control of the natural resource assets of these countries in extremely dodgy contracts. So they're essentially raping the countries of their wealth, these third world countries. And again, I don't see many human rights organisations particularly concerned about what's going on in order to build their wind turbines and to build their batteries. Now, the great news about Twitter is that it's the open forum, it's the free market of ideas. And when things get criticised online, that makes life very difficult for the abusers in our world. And so the important thing about Musk ensuring free speech is, for example, the vaccine victims can finally say, hey, I was hurt by this product, and Twitter isn't going to come around and just delete them from existence like that never happened.
No, you're right, and there's going to be some real pushback, because as he said, these woke people are on the side of child slave labour. They're people who, if your great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather owned 4% of a plantation in Antigua in the whatever century, then they'll go and topple his statue. But if right now in 2022 you're in favour of policies that enslave people today, all these woke tosspots are completely in favour of it. Thank you very much, Alexandra.
You don't have to even own the factory, Mark. As long as you were roughly the same colour or speak the same language as someone did, well, then you're guilty by the Marxist mentality.
Yeah, no, that's very true. But they're the ones enslaving all the third world children. Thank you very much, Alexandra. Stump the Steyn looms. You can ask me anything. GBViews at gbnews.uk. I was going to talk about Christmas with Leilani, but I think we might save that. Maybe we'll save that till next, because there's something that's been boiling up inside of me since the show began, and I'd like to get her take on that. But the great Leilani Dowding is coming up. Do not move from your seat. Sit through whatever the most irritating GB News promo is. You'll be glad you sat through it when Leilani comes back. Just a couple of minutes.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Steyn. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Dubes & Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Dubes & Kerr.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Hey, I just saw this story just before I came on air. 23 men charged with child sexual offences in Bradford. Okay, we do these stories all the time because it's basically pretty much every time. Bradford, Telford, Oxford, If your town ends in the words F-O-R-D, chances are you got it too. But I'm looking at this thing. These guys will appear in court for child sexual offences, which is a nice way of putting it. Jamil Ahmed is charged with rape and conspiracy to rape of a child. Mohammed Nadim Ali is charged with multiple rapes of children. Mohammed Yasir is charged with rape of a child. Khalid Parvez is charged with arranging and facilitating the prostitution of a child aged 13. So these are Pakistani men in Bradford raping white working class, so nobody cares about them. They're the most despised demographic now in Britain, white working class girls. Is there any racist element to that? The way all the men raping the children are one colour and the children they're raping are another colour? No, don't even think about that. Let's obsess on an 83-year-old former woman of the bedchamber with 60 years of service to Her Majesty the Queen for another 10 days. Leilani Dowding is with me. Leilani, as I think about it, the most awful aspect of this story isn't the lady in waiting and the complainant about her behaviour. It's actually the behaviour of the King and the Prince of Wales.
No, it really is. I mean, this lady did 60 years of service and they didn't want to stand by her for a second. They just immediately, racism, what should we do? Throw her under the bus. Yeah. You know, there was nothing to stay by her side or find out what happened. They just threw her under the bus, completely distanced themselves from her. And I think it's absolutely terrible. This is, you know, William's godmother. It's awful. It's awful. And like, if you break it down, like, honestly, what she did, I don't think it was that bad. I've been asked so many times, where are you from?
Where are you from?
Well, this is the thing, Mark. If I want to have a long conversation with somebody, I'll say, have a guess, right? And I'm curious to know where people think I'm from, just like they're curious to know my roots. And I think I got to the age of 15 where I realised it wasn't like, I'm from Bournemouth. They wanted to know my heritage, like, where are your parents from? They didn't, the Lady Hussey did not say, where are you born? You know, where are you from is so open. It could be, where are you working or anything. But when usually at me, I realise it's because my name's Leilani, which is a Hawaiian name, or because I don't look English. My mum's from the Philippines and my dad's English, and I'm proud of it. And the thing is this is like, they're just picking up on this whole offence and just making it into something. Even the Queen of Woke herself, Meghan Markle, right? She wasn't happy enough being American or that her mother's African-American. She actually went and did a genealogy test and found out she was 43% Nigerian and shouted it out everywhere because apparently, you know, it's not enough just to know you're American or African-American. She wanted to know because people are curious, and that's okay.
They're now saying that this appalling 83-year-old woman who's an Orwellian, whatever it is, the 3-minute hate figure, except it's more like 3 weeks in her poor case, they're now saying, it's cast a shadow over William and Kate's tour. What's cast a shadow over William and Kate is that the Prince of Wales has basically, as you said, thrown his godmother under the gold state coach or whatever they throw him under at the palace. But that's why, because any normal person thinks disowning your own godmother, or in the King's case, disowning your mum's friend of over 60 years, is just a crappy thing to do.
No, it is absolutely, and there's so many people. When I put on my Twitter, look, I'm happy for people to ask where I'm from. People are just saying, I cannot believe people are just finding something to be so offended over, and how could they not stand by this old lady? It's quite obvious, you know, she might have not asked the exact question that she wanted to know, but I knew at 15 what that question means. And it's someone being curious because, you know, if she was really racist, she probably wouldn't take any interest at all and just walk on by and not even say anything. So, you know, to do this, I just think it's so wrong.
Well, the woman says, who's accusing the former lady of the bedchamber, that she regards it as abuse. If that race relations in the United Kingdom must be in a state of near perfection, if that is what racial abuse is.
And you know what? It actually diminishes real racial abuse. It really does. And it diminishes all kinds of abuse by saying, where are you from, is abusive language. It's actually embarrassing. And I actually take offence more to that, by someone saying it's abuse, because, you know, even your beautiful newsreader, Tatiana Sanchez, I remember meeting her in the studios with Dan one day, and I asked her where she's from, and then I asked where her parents were from, because I was curious.
Yes.
And that's all it is. It's people's curiosity. It's not them trying to be, you know, mean and offensive. And sometimes, you know, a person of 83 might not get the language perfect. She didn't get her wokeness training, you know.
No.
So.
Well, but what do you think it says about the king? He's been king a little longer than Liz Truss was Prime Minister, and he's not prepared just to shrug this off, to put out a statement saying, "Well, we're sorry, this person was offended, but Lady Susan Hussey has done 6 years of service, public service, to a great institution, and we're sticking by her." I mean, if you can't do that when you're the king, what does it say about council culture and the increasingly totalitarian aspect of it?
Well, absolutely. I think it's despicable, and I think he's really playing into this woke culture. I mean, we've seen it, haven't we? Like he wants to be there at the head of like the net zero claptrap and all of that, and climate change nonsense. He wants to be, you know, running at the forefront of all of that, and so it doesn't surprise me for a second he's jumping on this woke bandwagon of like everything being offensive and you know, diversity really being conformity, and they want to take, you know, they want to take away everyone's individuality and everything else. So it does say a lot about him, and I just think it's awful, and I just think this is the way we're going. We're going to have a really woke royal family thanks to Prince Charles.
Well, this
King Charles.
Yeah, doing this doesn't say anything good about His Majesty or the Prince of Wales. Leila, stay with me, Leilani. I'm going to come back to you. We got time for a couple of stumps. Benny Bongo says, "Where are you really from, Mark?" I'll tell you what I know what you mean. I'm actually an Irish-Belgian Canadian. And if you say that to Lady Susan Hussey or anybody else, it kills the conversation. Because two of the countries that nobody is interested in at all are Belgium and Canada. So once you give that answer, Lady Susan wanders off and says, "Oh, God, what an awful party. I was stuck to this tedious Belgian Canadian all night. It was absolutely ghastly." So I recommend you borrow my answer. Walter says, "Mark, I see your upcoming cruise passes by Albania." Yeah, the Mark Steyn cruise is going down the Adriatic from Italy, Croatia, Montenegro, and then after Montenegro, it's the Albanian Riviera, as they now call it. Will you be picking up any migrants and bringing them back to the UK? No, I'm going to be buying myself a vacation villa, because Albania is now beautifully unspoilt since all the Albanian men moved over to the United Kingdom. So basically, property prices are going down here. It's a terrible nightmare. Albania, the Albanian Riviera, you're really going to like that. I'll tell you who's going to be on the Mark Steyn cruise is our pal Leila. In fact, virtually everybody on tonight's show. Leilani's going to be on. Ava Valadingerbroek is going to be on. Alexandra Marshall is going to be on. Toby Young's not going to be on because he just lowers the whole tone of it. You might as well get some Albanians if you're going to have Toby Young along for the ride. Great to see you, Leilani, and I look forward to seeing you on water. Dan Wootton is here to thump your Thursday. What you got for us, Dan?
Am I invited to the cruise, Mark?
Oh, you're way classier than Toby Young. You can come anytime, Dad. Where are you from, by the way, though?
How dare you? Oh, my God, you racist. No, I found that a fascinating conversation with Lally. We're going to be continuing it, Mark, because there are two sides to this story. You just know, don't you, if you look at the media and you see one side of the story, well, something's going on. So we've got a lot of folk on this tonight. Tom Bauer, Samantha Markle, Lady Colin Campbell. And we're going to investigate what is really going on with these claims of royal racism. I think this is a plot by the so-called Sussex Squad. So I'm looking into that tonight, Mark.
Oh, yeah. OK, that's great. And I always love seeing Lady Colin on your show. She alone is worth the price of admission. The best 2 hours on late night telly. It's Dan Wootton coming up right after the break. Stay safe, stay free.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me